Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we will be looking at something different. You all probably know about Transformers, 80s robots who disguise themselves as vehicles and recognizable objects, at least in most cases. But you may not have heard of Alphabots. No, this isn't a random combination of the youth of this year's lingo, nor is it just a letter. You see, this is a transformer that turns into a letter. While this may not be as good, objectively, as most of Hasbro's Transformers, I'm going to show you why I find these to be near perfect at what they set out to accomplish, and why I would totally recommend checking them out. Let's start off simple. There are 26 Alphabots in this technological alphabet, with varying colors and transformations into robots. I won't bore you with all the transformations, but I will show you some of the common shared ones, and some of the highlights. The H-frames, including H, which have a very skinny waist, and thicker arms and legs. The Y-frames, including Y, which have a triangle shape to them. The tall, skinny, one-legged ones, and the shorter one-legged ones, which pretend to have 2 feet. There's also the cowboy-booted ones, with E and K, which are pretty funny. T may have the funniest transformation of them all, though, turning around towards you, raising his eyebrows, and squaring up to fight. The last one I'm inclined to spoil are G and R, which probably have the most in-depth transformation of them all, which isn't saying much. I'll leave the rest of these out for you to discover, as realizing how they morph into a character is part of the fun. I'd like to point out the obvious here, but I find the silver paint on these to be a great detail. It helps unify them, and while definitely could have been applied better, really stops these guys from just turning into shapes without any real form. After messing around with the layers, the next and possibly best features I've neglected to mention are the combining gimmicks. Just like with official Transformers, these bots can turn into giants. Compared to themselves, that is. When put up with real Transformers, their gigantism starts to dwindle. But I find that to be some of the genius of these things. You can easily take one around in a pocket and fidget with it while doing other things. Onto the combined forms of the bots, there are 4 of them, which can all be made separately, with no overlapping parts. 2 are made of 7 letters, and the other 2 with 6 layers. The combiners are A through G, which is definitely the chunkiest, the arms barely qualifying as arms, though a great shoulder cannon and shoulder armor. Notice how I did not mention the legs, as they are short and wide on all of these combiners. Next up is H through N, which is pretty solid, with better arms and more reasonably sized shoulder pad. The gun also looks cool, though beware. The letter N does not like to untab once you put it into the combined configuration. I'd recommend putting a bar knife or something in that tab so you can undo it. Now would be as good a time as any to mention that these do require these gray parts to combine, sadly. I wish they could combine without relying on these parts, but it's no biggie. Just don't lose them. Next up is O through T, which creates a robot notably missing much of a shoulder cannon. Despite that, and his weird attempt at fingers, he makes up for it with the great detail on the gray parts, which makes him feel much more robot-like. Last is my personal favorite, U through Z. This guy feels much more like a real proportioned machine than the others do, and I find the fact that you can fold out Y and V's arms to give him tiny arms is hilarious. Double shoulder cannons on this one, and probably the best head, as the neck kind of combines with the head to give him a actually proportioned head to the body. The others struggle with this task. The only problem, besides the legs, is the gap in his stomach. You can flip X's head down to cover that, but, well, it looks strange from the back. If you're wondering, I use these handy instructions and cards to combine them, which have some pretty cool art on them, though a little inaccurate, as you can tell from shoulder cannons alone. 2, 3. 1, 2. That is about all I have to show you for these guys. And while I am not at all sponsored, I do hope you are convinced like I am that these are great little toys that perfect what they set out to do. Bring fun. I mean, they can be taken wherever, fidgeted with, spell messages and such. though these are objectively less than Transformers. I find them to be great bundles, or in this case, letters of joy.